We don't know much about ancient Druids. Pop culture shows us the romanticized version that was born only 3 centuries ago. Tree huggers, magicians, wise old men in robes. In real Celtic society, Druids were a learned class: judges, healers, teachers, and advisors to the king. Roman attacks and the spread of Christianity eventually made them disappear. Most of what we know comes from Julius Caesar and later Christian monks, both of whom were heavily biased. In the 18th century, as factories and cities grew, people began to romanticize Druids. They became symbols of mystery and deep connection to nature. That idea inspired modern neo-Druidry, which is still popular today.
Druidry, it's an organic spiritual path for these times, with some roots and some influences from the past, but there is no direct line, no direct lineage back to our Druidic ancestors.
To get to know the Druid culture better, I traveled to Ireland, the country with the most Druids today. This is Eimear. She is a Druid and the chosen chief of OBOD, Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, with 38,000 members around the world.
Well, I come from a strong Roman Catholic background, and so when I was never religious though, but when I was 9 years old in religion class, and it just dawned on me that the God the nun was talking about didn't exist, and then I panicked because I thought I was going to hell.
Then, in her 20s, she went to Tanzania, interested in traditional healing.
But I was frustrated because it wasn't from my landscape. And I was with my healer friendship, and we were in a bookshop, and this book hopped out from a shelf, The Modern Day Druidess by Cassandra Eason. And I looked at it, and it was very pragmatic, and I really liked this because she said, you can be a Druid in an apartment in a city, and you get a few pot plants and you create your own grove. Because when I was growing up, I knew about the Druids. I learnt this from those nuns. I learnt all the Irish myths and legends, and I was fascinated by them, but it never dawned on me that Druidry was a thing in the modern world. And then myself, my late husband and I, and 2 or 3 other people just started. And now we have a nice grove of mixed people, not all Druids, but they like the ceremonies. So that's how it happened. Am I a Druid on Sundays, for example? I'm teasing about that, but or am I always a Druid? You see, there's often a question people ask, is Druidry something you are or something you do? And I go, yes. So I don't separate my Druidry from the rest of my life. It's part of it. So it's there because I'm a storyteller. That is part of Druidry. I play the harp. That's part of Druidry. I'm a herbalist. That's part of Druidry. I'm a ritual holder, celebrant. So much of what I do is woven in. And I'm a psychologist, although I've retired recently after over 30 years in private practice. That was woven into my Druidry, because Druidry is not just a spiritual development path, it's also a personal development path. To me, they're not separate anymore.
The Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids represents 3 grades of ancient Celtic society. You would have to complete all of them to become a Druid. First, Bards. There are poets, singers, storytellers, and oral historians. Ovates are responsible for understanding mysteries of death and rebirth. They are healers and shamans. And on top, Druids. They are the intermediaries between people and the divinities. And as mentioned earlier, in the past they were always close to the king.
Yes, they were advisors to the king, and a bard could bring down a king if a king wasn't leading and governing in a good way, wasn't honouring the sovereignty of the land. A bard could bring down a king through a satire. They were patronised, the Druids and the Bards were patronised by the kings and the chieftains, and if they didn't receive hospitality, they could easily write a vicious satire, and there are some stories where that has happened. So yes. Unfortunately, Druids, we don't have the power to topple governments and to keep bad leaders in check. We don't have that in these modern times.
You would love to?
Well, who wouldn't?
Bard the Great was the toughest for Eimear. She always loved to sing, but she didn't view it as a bardic art because she wasn't writing songs.
His lips are like summer roses fair. He has the sweetest smile.
If I'm in the woods, chants will come to me, music will come to me, words. but not then. Eishlet loris anam na spera, Eishlet loris anam na nein, Eishlet loris anam na guiha, It takes you into an altered state, working with your breath, working with the resonance within your head, your skull, for example. That is very, very profound. Takes you out of yourself into an altered state of consciousness.
As in every religion, there are gods, but not strictly defined gods because it's not a dogmatic religion. And Caesar also changed them according to ancient Roman gods, but I found the 5 most prominent ones. Dagda is often called a good god. He is associated with strength, magic, and wisdom. Then there is a god of healing, poetry, and inspiration, Bridget, god of skill and leadership, Luke, goddess of war and death, Morrigan, and Canunus, god of nature, animals, and the other world that we'll talk about later.
So I was brought up, there's one God and everyone else is false. I don't have any of that. So I work with the divine expression that manifests with each of these deities, or the ones that I like. So Bridget, for example, is a very popular goddess here. She's the maiden, the mother, and the crone, and the Cailleach this is her crone aspect.
Have you ever heard about the infamous Wickerman? It is believed that Druids were making huge Wickerman statues full of people inside, and then burning them down. Mostly they used criminals, but sometimes innocent people as well. Ancient Greek historian Diodorus Siculus wrote about Druids. These men predict the future by observing the flight and calls of birds and by the sacrifice of the holy animals. All orders of society are in their power. And in very important matters, they prepare a human victim, plugging a dagger into his chest. By observing the way his limbs convulse as he falls and the gushing of his blood, they are able to read the future. But Greco-Roman writers were known to project barbarian traits onto foreigners, to feel superior, of course. Some historians even say that Druid sacrifice was just a Roman propaganda.
It's interesting, the Romans thought the Druids were terrible at human sacrifice, and they were experts at their own crucifixions themselves. So I don't know. We have found some bog bodies, very well preserved, that seem to have been killed ritually in Ireland. I think there's 3. How widespread that was, I don't know. Why that happened, I've no idea. It's not actually in any of our manuscripts, there are no references to any human sacrifice. Now why that is, I don't know, but there isn't. But then that doesn't mean it wasn't happening.
So why do we only know Roman and Catholic biased stories about Druids? The answer is easy. Ancient Druids didn't write anything down. There are theories that by doing so they kept their society exclusive.
That may have been, we don't know, that's our projection onto that, because they didn't write that down in order to say it. So perhaps. But they passed it on to each other. They passed it on to their trainees, to their students, so it was passed on. Just like any profession, they keep their secrets. So I think they're no different to anybody else.
However, this is just a theory. They also believe that written wisdom may be misunderstood and taken out of context. And memory played a big role in their training.
Because it was believed everything needed to be kept in the head. So part of their training was to learn, lots and lots of tracts and poetry, etc. I think it was considered that and it may be true, that if you commit things to paper, you lose that ability to hold it in your brain. For example, I used to remember everyone's telephone number. And then when I started put them into my phone, I don't remember anyone. I've lost that ability. The thing is, there's no point regretting it, that they didn't write down their knowledge. There's no reason why we can't learn from our landscape what they learned from their landscape.
Druidry is one of the only Western religions that strongly believes in rebirth. Death is seen not as an end, but as a beginning of a new journey.
We should always be ready to go. So that we're not left with, oh my God, so many regrets about all the things I didn't do, that we are ready to pass on to the next world. And there's that sense of that when we have done that and we are prepared, then it's okay. Nothing to fear.
This is Carl. He was our couchsurfing host in Dublin and by a fortunate coincidence is a part of an OBOD order and is interested in druids and past life regression. When the soul first comes to the earth, it is nothing but the pure energy, a spark from the deep otherworld, without a form or memory. After being in energy for a while, the soul migrates into the realm of elementals, for example fairies and gnomes.
Beings that are not physical to us, but they're in a different realm and they make up the elements. So they are the controllers of the elements, I suppose. So you would go through that realm of experience and eventually you would migrate into physical realm, which would be starting at the bottom in terms of evolution. You would be rocks and crystals. You'd be every different combination of what you could be as a rock. And people who have, regressed to past lives of rock, they're like, well, it was very slow and nothing really happened and it felt very restrictive and it's a completely different experience compared to being human, when we have all these abilities that the human body has.
After the minerals, the soul migrates to the plant and then to the animal kingdom.
It's the first time, to be honest, that I've ever spoken about past lives to people that weren't close friends, because it's almost like it feels like a little bit to me like you're stroking your ego kind of thing about these great things you were in the past. So I'm almost reluctant to tell you too much about it. The first past life that came to me was my friend Carmen saw me as a Native American shaman on the back of a horse with no saddle and a long plume of feathers. She said the longer the plume of feathers, the more respect you have. Later on, her friend Hathor told me the same thing. And then another friend later on, Susan, unconnected to them, saw the same past life. And then when I came back to Ireland, an Irish farmer, guy in his 50s actually, had a dream about me. And he told me the details of the dream, and he said there was, in the dream, a shaman approached me, and I think that shaman was you. And I was like, that's interesting. That's the fourth time I've heard it. And I'd done my own regression with a lead in, and I saw that lifetime, but I saw it in more detail, that I was a shaman, but then the chieftain got killed in an attack on our village, and then I became the chieftain, and then I died of old age with my wife and all the rest of it. So it just confirmed to me, it was quite clear that I did leave that life.
Carl believes that he still has the will to help and heal people from those shamanic days.
I won't get into all the various different lifetimes because it'll sound a bit wacky, but there was another one which came out which was significant. Apparently I was a Russian man in early 1900s in Russia, lived quite a short life. I was in my 20s or maybe 30s. I died in the 1917 Winter Revolution, where the tradesmen, craftsmen rose up. Yeah, I was a carpenter or something, or tradesman, carpenter maybe. Name was Sasha, means Alexander in Russian. And that, again, is why I have such an affinity for carpentry now, and why I have a carpentry company, construction company now, but started off as a carpentry company.
After talking a lot about the other world, I need to finally explain what it is. The tricky part is that there is no clear explanation. Some say that we enter the other world in a dream, some during deep meditation, and some try to enter it with psychedelics. It is a realm that lies beside or within the world we know, separated by a thin, shifting boundary. Many Druids understand the other world as the inner soul of nature.
I can't describe it because it's not for me to describe it. It's for each person to engage with the other world in their own way. There are, in some of the stories, there are descriptions. So in the Voyage of Moel Dún, actually, he goes to 37 islands in the other world, and each of them have different expressions. There's the island of women, there's the island of the black and white sheep, etc. They all are different expressions of the other world.
Druids believe that spirits are everywhere and see nature as sacred and alive. Every tree, stone, or mountain holds magic within it. Humans are part of an interconnected web with the natural world, where seasons, growth, decay, and animals all reveal deeper truths. But trees are especially important. That's why druids are usually called tree huggers. Each tree has its own symbolism. The oak stands for the strength, the birch for new beginnings, and the yew for death and rebirth. Trees are seen as wise teachers and protectors.
Not all tree huggers are druids, and I'm sure all druids are tree huggers at some point. It's around connecting with the tree, sharing your breath, and that's a very much like a sacred act. We are learning more and more about trees, how they communicate with each other, how they connect to the mycelial networks, how they send healing to wounded trees. Trees are our friends, they're our family. And we use trees as a metaphor for ourselves and for time. So the roots represent the past, the trunk is the present, and then the leaves and the branches are the future. I love just walking through the forest and just recognizing the different trees. And at times, if it's at nighttime, I can do it. I can listen to the song of the trees. And each tree has its own song. Each tree species has its own song.
Just like trees, each animal has its own lesson for us. The crow, for example, is seen as a messenger between the worlds. It helps connect our world to the other world. You can see a crow's wing on Eimear's altar for the dead.
The animal kingdom is very interesting in how it works. So the Native Americans, for instance, consider the coyote to be the trickster. If you see a coyote, it's almost like a magnetism or a mirroring. It's mirroring back to you certain parts of your psyche that need to be looked at. So if you see a coyote, it's to remind you, because it's a trickster, that you're not playful enough. You need to be more playful. So in Irish lore, I'm pretty sure the squirrel is to remind you to be more playful. And they're a funny creature, squirrels. I love them. It's got to be my favourite creature. I have one that comes by the balcony here, and I leave nuts out for it, and then I just have some videos of it, because I leave the door open sometimes and he comes in onto the floor, and the way in which they move is very funny. I get a lot of laughs out of looking at them.
I've had some particularly profound experiences with horses, so they're very special to me.
In Druid stories, horses guide heroes, carry souls, and support life journeys. It is believed that animals appear in the real life or in dreams to carry an important meaning.
And it's a bit like you don't go out looking to find, oh, I need to find a human that I'm going to have a connection with. Maybe you are, but generally we meet people and we either resonate or we don't. And I don't resonate with every horse. Every horse doesn't resonate with me, just the same with people. So it happened. And, you know, every time I meet a horse, I don't have a deep mystical experience, but I've had some really, really powerful ones.
Many people see druids as magicians, but druids see magic in nature itself. Here is Eimear's Instagram post that explains what she sees as a magic. Frost on a spider web and a tree with a grandmother's face.
You go out and you open yourself up and you say, what comes will come. It's not about manipulating. It's not about summoning. But it's about leaving yourself open to the magic. The Irish word for druidry and the Irish word for magic is the same, it's druicht. So there are some people, not druids, it's not our way, who summon and want to control things and manipulate through spells and etc. Ours is about allowing magic and druicht to manifest itself. Then you're not under pressure or stress. It's just, I'm here, and what will be, will be. And I find that personally very, very reassuring. And I find things come.
Knowledge is magical too. For example, knowledge of medical herbs. Ovates, the healers and shamans, treat not only body, but also emotional and ancestral wounds from previous lifetimes. They believe that health lies in a balance within a person and the land. Plants are used for both their physical effects and the spirits within them. Rituals are also part of healing. Blessings and chants can help ease anxiety, clear spiritual weight, and guide healing.
How do I view modern medicine? It has its place. It's good for emergencies. I think it's not the only option. I think we need to be able to integrate all modalities, because I'm a herbalist. I use homeopathy. Energy healing is really, really powerful. It's about looking at what does work and using it, and if it doesn't work, not. I suppose my concern is, with modern medicine, that it's the superior one when it is not, because I think 5 or 6% of known illnesses are actually curable. The rest are maintained. But it has a place. I mean, if I had a heart attack, I'd want to go to hospital. Or if I broke my leg, all of that. So it has its place.
Druidic celebrations are determined by the wheel of the year. They mark solstices, Yule, the longest night, and Alban Heaven, the longest day, as well as spring and autumn equinoxes, when day and night are equal. They also celebrate seasonal and agricultural cycles, just like Samhain. Samhain is the origin of modern Halloween. It is a Celtic New Year. It is believed to be a liminal time when spirits, fairies, and dead could cross into a living world. People wear scary costumes to blend in with or confuse these spirits.
And of course, things become commercialized a lot. And that's something what modern life does. However, the significance for Druids is not lost, and it's not diluted by the commercialism of modern day Halloween, because what we are celebrating is Samhain, and that's a very deep, rich festival where we're honouring the ancestors and the energy of the Cailleach.
Cailleach is the goddess of winter, weather maker, who guards the cycles of life and death. She will rule up until Beltane, the Celtic beginning of the summer. Eimear invited us to a real Samhain ceremony. So here we are in Kilkenny, Three Castles, Ireland, at her house, with a large garden and an ancient castle with a graveyard, where she holds all her ceremonies. One of the first to arrive was a man with a horn, Ratanadeva, a former Buddhist and environmental scientist from England. He turned to Druidry to find a deeper, mythical connection with nature, because working as a scientist it felt too cerebral.
If we love nature, if we personify nature in terms of gods and goddesses and spirits, and use that personification as a means to loving, that was a theme developed by James Hillman, that personification is a route to love. So we can develop a relationship with the environment, a rich relationship, which means we won't treat it as disrespectfully as heretofore.
Usually ceremonies are held during the day, but Samhain starts at night.
Traditionally in the Celtic calendar, this is the beginning of the year. So the year begins in the dark. As life begins in the darkness of the womb, plants begin in the darkness of the soil, so the year comes out at this dark time of year.
He said that he always blows a horn before the ceremonies to announce our coming to the spirits. Fire plays a big role in Samhain. It cleans and protects against harmful spirits and illnesses. We're collecting sticks for the ritual fire and putting candles everywhere to light up the path. As darkness fell, more people arrived. Most of them seemed to know each other for a long time. At least half of them were wearing robes and some interesting accessories. They were chatting, bringing food and gifts, and using fragrant smoke to purify themselves and release last year's misfortunes. After they cleaned me, I heard soft flute music from the garden. It all felt magical. After everyone was clean, chants began. Chants unified people and showed the way for friendly, otherworldly spirits. The procession moved to a big stone building without windows. Ancient Irish monks used to sit there the whole life in complete darkness and pray. Chants continued inside. It was hard to breathe because of the smoke, but all the people stayed still and obeyed Eimear's orders. We couldn't stay until the end of the ceremony because we had to go back to Dublin. But when we were already walking out of the garden, Eimear's daughter called us and asked if we want to see something wonderful. She took us to the graveyard, where she carefully put hundreds of candles on every gravestone in respect to dead ancestors. At the end of the ceremony, people would come there and light up Bengal lights. She said that these fires sent light to distressed souls, especially to poor women who died in unrest. Looking at the ceremony, I felt a bit jealous. They have a big community of like-minded people with whom they can share sacred thoughts and celebrations. All of them were kind and so patient and willing to help. I was really grateful to be able to witness this magic.